Thank you, President Dinesh. It is my pleasure today to raise a toast to the Rotary Club of Batu Pahat in Malaysia. And we are equally pleased to have Rotarian PP Fukok Hin from RC Batu Pahat, who's attending this meeting with us. So please, I would request all my fellow Rotarians to join me in a toast. From the Rotary Club of Singapore to our international friends, let's keep trying to do more because service never ends. To RC Batu Pahat and to Rotary International. Cheers.
Cheers.
Rotary International.
Rotary International.
Thank you, Rotary Club of Singapore.
Thank you, Rotarian Beneath. Thank you. Okay, now I think I'll share my slides.
Are you toast?
Okay, may I call upon our Honorary Secretary Bridget for club announcements?
Yes,
Secretary's
sure, President.
announcements. Yes, please.
There's one announcement I would like to make. Dr. Chan, Director of the Vocational Service Committee, is hosting the first Vocational Service Committee meeting tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. on Zoom, and it will be a fireside chat hosting Kelvin Chi, who is the Managing Director of DEX Pty Ltd and the winner of the Entrepreneur of the Year 2019. Dr. Chan will be assisted with his moderators, Rotarian Elizabeth Chi, Rotarian Brenda Lee, and PP Alan Tan. I think the announcement has already gone out via Club Runner, and it is also posted on the main Rotary Club chat group. So this is tomorrow. Please do join if you have time, and that's it from me.
Thank you, Bridget. Birthdays. Please join me in celebrating happy birthday for Vivek, Rotarian Vivek Chabra. Oh, that's today. And I have not seen him. 17 January, Rotarian Chongji Cheng and Deepu Joseph on 19 January. Well, he's overseas. He's an ambassador member. So please join me in happy birthday to all our Rotarians here. Thank you. So, wedding anniversary celebrants. Oh, it's Willie and Hannah today, 30th January.
Hey, Willie.
Willie, are you here?
Yes, I saw him.
Yes, I am.
Oh, yes.
Happy
Willie.
birthday.
Happy
Very
anniversary.
Happy anniversary. I hope you remembered it.
No need.
Okay, to our honorary member, past President Ko Chin Hui and also to Louisa Lee and Dr. Yu Weng Chiu. I think Louisa are not here today.
President, our speaker Nellie Wartoft has entered the room.
Okay. Okay, our speaker has entered the room. She is Miss Nellie Wartoft. Are you here, Miss Nellie?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Okay,
Lovely, good to see you.
Thank you, warm welcome.
Thank
and
you.
I really
so
thank
much.
you for accepting our invitation to speak to us this evening on
My
a very
pleasure.
interesting topic, lifelong learning, what it means today. This is the most relevant topic of today, especially in the circumstances created by COVID-19. Thank you, Nellie, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Fellow Rotarians, I would just like to inform you about the third club assembly. Time is flying. This is on 27th of January 2021. And in the club assembly, we will have only the members and not the guests. And all our fellow directors, board of directors, service chairs, and club committee chairs will speak about their activities, what has been achieved since the last club assembly, and our plan for the coming few months of our Rotary year. So please block your calendar and join us for third club assembly on 27th January 2021. Well, I informed about WUPD last meeting. I just want to remind you that World Understanding and Peace Day will be on 23rd February 21. This is 116th birthday of Rotary International that we'll be celebrating together with all Singapore clubs. And as I said, it is a very unique way we are going to celebrate. Within the restrictions imposed on due to COVID-19, we are allowed to have 50 members to be present for business meeting. So we will have our club meeting on 23rd February, which is Tuesday, it's not Wednesday, in Conrad Centennial Hotel. We will observe all the requirements, we'll comply with the restrictions, and all other clubs will be connected by Zoom. They will also be having meetings at different locations, physical meetings. So I'm very pleased to tell you that this will be our first physical meeting this year on 23rd February. Some more details are being worked out, and you will hear from me in the next meeting. Thank you. Well, before Kaifer, I think I have another announcement. It's not announcement. Today we have with us past President Phu Kok Hing from Batu Pahar. As you know, last week it was raining heavily all around, and in Malaysia we had heavy floods. And past President Phu, he is the chairman of District Disaster Response Management Committee. He's the chairman of the District Disaster Response Management Committee, and he will speak to us briefly about the disaster relief due to Johor floods. PP Phu, please.
Yeah, thank you, President Dinesh, and good evening to everyone, past president, honorary member of Rotary Club of Singapore, and all my fellow Rotarians from Singapore and Rotary Club of Singapore. Now, first of all, I'd like to thank Rotary Club of Singapore for this very short notice and you are able to accept me, to invite me to share a little bit of this flood scenario in Johor. And today is not actually a sharing. Today, I'm doing an appeal to the Rotary Club of Singapore, the Rotarians, for this pressing moment, for us to lend our helping hands to the flood victims. This morning, actually, I have already rang up our district governor, Raja Mohan, and we have decided to mobilize the district disaster fund to help the victims. But for this evening, I would like to give you a short sharing on the situations in flood in Johor. So can President Dinesh help me to share the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, please. Bridget, could you do that?
Now, before I begin with my short sharing, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our past president, Yip Lip-Ki, Dr. Yip Lip-Ki. He has been a very helpful Rotarian, being a very senior man from Rotary Club of Singapore. He has given me a lot of advice and guidance and encouragement at this pressing moment. So I'd like to thank him, because I told him I'm a greenhorn in this area. He's a very senior man here. So I think without further ado, I just share with you the flood situation in Johor. Next slide, please.
Okay.
You can manage your slides yourself.
Is it? Sorry, I'm using my handphone. So I do not know how to do this. Okay, thank you. This is the Johor hit by floods after heavy rain. 1,000 residents evacuated, according to the Channel News Asia's 2nd of January 2021. All right. Now this is one of the photo, and this is from my hometown. From my hometown, one victim drowned, and the flood spread to Batu Pahat also. Next, please. So this is now flooding was worsened in Johor with the southern Malaysian state recording its first death yesterday, while some 1,780 people have been relocated to 28 temporary relief centers. The news on 3rd of January. Next, please. All right. Now, basically, the report on the January 5th, we can see a widespread of area in Malaysia. Many families were badly hit by the flood. I shall not read the area one by one just to save time. So, in total, the flood have affected 6 states in 22 districts, with a total of 23,776 people were affected. Next, please. All right. So another report on the 7th of January 2020. So again, most peninsular Malaysia area, including Perak, Kelantan, Johor, Pahang, Kedah, and Terengganu, since 2nd, triggered the floods that have resulted in casualties and damage. So this report, at least 7 January, at least 3 fatalities due to flood across all the states here. And also heavy rain continues to cause widespread flooding in peninsular Malaysia. So nearly 50,000 individuals have been evacuated as reported by the Malaysian Record Society. And the worst affected state is still Pahang, where about 27,000 residents have been evacuated in recent days. Next. This is the, I would like to thank our PDG John Chia from Rotary Club of Johor Bahru. Now, this is the information provided by PDG John Chia. Now, this is a report from the PPS. PPS stands for Temporary Relief Center. Now, a total of 227 families are affected. In fact, for Rotary, our target group for our projects are for this group of families. Of course, if we have enough fund, we will try to cover the whole of Johor. But then our priorities will be the 227 families. Next. All right. Now, what can we do with the fund? Now, we try to do, number one, we try to prepare packed food, packed cooked food. Each pack costs 5 ringgit Malaysian, 5 ringgit Malaysia. All right. And secondly, now what we can do is every family, we give them food package of cost of 100 ringgit per family. And the food package including cooking oil, rice, instant noodles, dry chili, ikan bilis, ginger, garlic, small onions, Milo, cream, crackers, 1 whole chicken, eggs, potatoes, sardines, and sugars. All right. Now, our proposed budget is 40,000. Right. So the 20,000 is for immediate disbursement. An additional 20,000 for family to be identified by Rotary Club of Mersings and Rotary Club of Kota Tinggi. So in the meantime, to initiate the projects, my own club, Rotary Club of Batu Pahat, we have contributed a token sum of ringgit Malaysia 6,000. And I appeal to our generous Rotarian from the Rotary Club of Singapore to help the district to mobilize these projects to help the victims from the Johor flood. So I think with that, I end my short sharing, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with our fellow Rotarians in Singapore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Past President Fu. And I would just like to inform you that when we heard about the flood situation in a very short time, our ISC, International Service Chair, Varun, and he worked very hard in collecting money. And today we have sent 4,000 Singapore dollars, which is equivalent to approximately 12,000 Malaysian ringgit through Rotary Club of Johor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Today.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And along with that, we're also sending another $6,600, which is about 20,000 ringgit to Temolo, and which is for mattress as well as for blankets. And the first that we sent in Johor, that's for meals. And of course, I mean, the meals that you've shown is 5 ringgit, and that's vegetarian. And I think this is 6 ringgit with the other. This is all halal meals as well.
Thank you very much. This is really exemplary action to help the needies. Thank you very much.
So we'll always be there to help our fellow Malaysians.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, so back to our club program. And next, I'll just share my slide again. Okay, it's not what happened. Yes. Okay. All right, this is the time for Know Your Fellow Rotarians, KIFER. Today we have a very senior Rotarian on our KIFER program who joined our club on 7th of February 1996. He's in the business of diamond distribution and very, very keen on environmental protection. And he's equally good in making cocktails. Those who have experience always remember his cocktails. Without further ado, I will now give you our Rotarian and my friend, Suresh Hathiramani. Suresh, please. And I'll stop sharing so that you can see him. All right, Suresh, please.
President Dinesh and fellow Rotarians, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about myself and what I do and how I became a Rotarian. My name, as you announced, is Suresh Hathiramani, and I've been a Rotarian since 1996. I was inducted by then President Dr. Oliver Hennedige. I'm 67 years old. I just turned 67 last week. I was born in Medan, Indonesia, where my parents were living since the 40s. I spent my early childhood in Indonesia and was very wisely sent by my parents to school in Bombay, where I completed my secondary school and university. I graduated from St. Xavier's College in Bombay, a premier institute of higher learning affiliated to the University of Bombay. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Physics Mathematics, having graduated in 1974. It's almost 46 years now. I have lived a total of 14 years in Bombay, which I consider as being my formative and most important years. After I graduated, I moved to Bandung in Indonesia to work in a textile factory to gain some work experience. Instead of a planned 2-year stay, I continued in this job for 4.5 years. In 1980, I quit my job. I guess I was getting too comfortable in that company and took the challenge to start my own business. It was a major shift in my career path, but being young and single, it was a chance worth taking, and I took that chance. I met my wife-to-be, Anita, who many fellow Rotarians know, during my last year in Jakarta, and we got married 1.5 years after I moved to Singapore. I was about 28 then, or 27, I think. I have 3 children, the eldest of whom is a girl named Ekta. She's 36. The second is a boy named Nikhil. He's 33. And the third, also a girl named Riddhi. She's 30 and she lives and works in New York. I joined the Rotary Club of Singapore, as you stated, in 1996 at the behest of my uncle and previous boss, the late P.P. Murli Chandrai. He was pushing me to join Rotary for many years, believing that Rotary would provide me the opportunity to share my blessings with the less fortunate. I felt that the time was right for me to give back to society, as my awareness about environmental issues was growing, and I felt that Rotary could provide me the platform to do some good in the area of conservation and help me spread awareness and a sense of urgency, which I felt at that time. And this I felt would be for the greater good of the human race. Even as a young child, I was always respectful of the power and the beauty of nature. And to see its rampant destruction was alarming to me. I saw the forests and the mountains, which I climbed very often as a teenager, as a manifestation of the Creator. And the desecration that humans had caused was both very painful and perplexing to me. This served as my call to action. I've been a member of the community service and vocational service committees from the very start. And in the early years, I spent more time in the CSC, heading quite a number of projects. In 2001-2002, I headed the year-long Save Water and Electricity campaign, jointly run with the Bishan Tuapayo Town Council. Suresh Kirti helped me greatly set this up. It was a very successful program in creating awareness and changing mindsets amongst the residents and other town councils. And thereafter, other town councils ran the same program spread over Singapore. PM Lee officiated at the award presentation ceremony during our project, which I think was a very commendable achievement for our club. In the last 15 years, I've been more active in vocational service, having served as VAC director in 2007-2008 and President Peter Tan's board. I've also served on the board of President Shahul Hamid as joint vice president for the Rotary year 2013-2014. I'm grateful to Rotary for providing me a platform to give back to society. And I'm glad that since I joined Rotary, and particularly in the last 10 years, environmental awareness and the push for urgent action to reverse climate change has gathered speed. Our work will never end, and it is our responsibility through participative action to ensure a habitable planet for our future generations. The past year has shown us how intertwined our destinies are with the well-being of nature and all its living beings. A hobby that I'm passionate about is nature photography. Sorry. I picked it up during my time as a nature guide in Pulau Ubin and Botanical Gardens about 15 years ago. I love the outdoors and being with nature. I was an occasional hiker and a bird watcher up until a few years ago, but now because of my bad knees, I cycle once or twice a week in my neighborhood. I'm particularly good as a handyman around the house. My wife has had no reason to call a repairman or a painter or an electrician for many years now. But she does not pay me enough to be the gardener, so I let her hire an external gardener. I almost forgot to state what I do for a living. As President Dinesh mentioned, I'm a diamond merchant. My membership classification is diamond and gemstone wholesale, and that is exactly what I do. I'm in the most basic terms a diamond merchant, and I sell polished diamonds to the trade. It's a B2B business. And I have a small B2C division that creates high quality bespoke jewelry for end consumers. I've been active in local trade associations and have served a total of 8 years over 2 terms as president of the Diamond Exchange of Singapore, and I'm presently its honorary secretary. I participate regularly in the activities of international trade bodies related to diamonds, and I've served 2 terms as a Trade and Promotions Committee chairman of the World Federation of Diamond Bourses. It's an international body that regulates the worldwide diamond trade. This year, I complete 40 years in the business of diamonds. I look forward to many more years, active years in the service of Rotary and humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Rotarian
President
Suresh.
Dinesh.
I think all our spouses, if they're around, they are listening, that where they should go for to look attractive.
I usually try and sell to the husbands. I mean, I keep the spouses out.
Wise man. Well, I think we all know much more about Rotarian Suresh Hathiramani, and I'm sure especially our new Rotarians will know what a life story he has described, and about his environmental protection area. I think Rotary has decided a new focus area from 1st of July will be environment, and I'm sure we will have a lot of advice from Suresh Hathiramani. And I think that this Kaifer program has been very, very successful, and we come to know a lot about our fellow Rotarians, whether they are seniors or even the newcomers. It's fantastic to hear their story. Thank you, Rotarian Suresh.
Thank you, President.
So now we have the speaker time. Well, today's, as I said earlier, our speaker is Miss Nellie Wartoft. She is CEO and founder of Tigerhall, and the topic is lifelong learning, what it means today. I will now call upon Rotarian Dr. Hun Sing Kiao to introduce our speaker. Sing Kiao, please.
Yes. Good evening, President Dinesh and fellow Rotarians. I have the pleasure to introduce our speaker of this meeting, Ms. Nellie Wartoft. She is of Swedish origin. She is the CEO and founder of Tigerhall, which is a company that provides mentor media platform for professionals to achieve their career goals by learning directly from Asia's most successful people.
You have to unmute, Sing Kiao.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, right. Good evening, President Dinesh and fellow Rotarians. Sorry for I actually unmuted, but I don't know, maybe I missed it, sorry. This evening, I have the pleasure to introduce our speaker of this meeting, Ms. Nellie Wartoft. She's of Swedish origin. She's the CEO and founder of Tigerhall, which is a company that provides mentor media platform for professionals to achieve their career and life goals by learning directly from Asia's most successful people. Ms. Wartoft has a profound interest in education and learning. At the age of 16, she set up her first business in Sweden. She helped to enhance senior citizens' digital literacy by providing a platform. She moved to Singapore when she was 18 to study at the university and has been living here since 11 years ago. After her university studies, she joined Michael Page International. Soon after that, she led the sales and marketing recruitment practice in Singapore. Observing the existence of mismatch of skills of employers' expectation and what the candidates possess, she left Michael Page International after 4 years and took up the chance to set up Tigerhall. Let's welcome Ms. Wartoft.
Thank you, Rotarian Sing Kiao. Now I'll call upon our speaker, Ms. Nellie Wartoft, to speak to us. Ms. Nellie, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, President Dinesh, and thank you for the introduction, Sing Hoon. I'm very, very glad to be here with you tonight. I'm very glad when I got the invitation from Bridget. Thank you very much for inviting me. My family has always been very active in Rotary. Actually, my grandfather spent a lot of his time with Rotary back in Sweden, in the town where I'm originally from. And then my father spent a lot of time with Rotary as well. So I grew up hearing all about Rotary. So very pleased to be able to meet the Singapore Club here tonight. So I'll be speaking about lifelong learning. So what I thought I'll share is I'll start with sharing a little bit about myself and my background and giving some context about where I'm from, and then a little bit about the business that I'm running today, which is Tigerhall. And then I'll move into what does lifelong learning look in the corporate world today, how our business is approaching this topic, and then ending with individuals and how you can take up more lifelong learning as an individual. And feel free to post any questions in the chat as well. I see the chat while I'm presenting, so feel free to share any thoughts or comments or questions there as well. So as Sing-Hoon mentioned, I'm originally from Sweden. I'm from a very, very small village in the middle of nowhere where it's, I usually say, more cows than people. So it's very hard, easier to spot a cow than it is to spot a person. And that's where I grew up and spent most of my life. And as Sing-Hoon also mentioned, I started my first business at age 16. So I've always been obsessed with education. And when I was in school, I was protesting against why are we learning the Pythagoras theorem, the periodical table, instead of learning how to lead a team and how a credit card works and so on. So that led me to start my first business at age 16, which was a platform that helped senior citizens educate themselves about digital literacy. So we had one social media track and then one computer track. And level 101 was kind of how to double click. And then we had everything from how to double click all the way to setting up your Facebook profile and searching and so on. So that gave me the flair for entrepreneurialism and wanting to run my own business one day as well. Then at age 18, I swapped this village for another village, not so much a global village, called Singapore. So I came here on my own when I was 18 and booked a one-way flight on my 18th birthday and packed everything I had into an ice hockey trunk, because that's like the largest bag that you can find in Sweden, is where you have your ice hockey equipment. So I was packing everything I had into that bag, booked a one-way flight on Singapore.com and just packed everything and moved over here as soon as I could. So I landed on this island, and that was 11 years ago now, and did university and was running my own businesses in consulting, SEO, social media, and so on at the same time. And then afterwards, I spent most of my career with Michael Page. So I was leading the sales and marketing practice for the Southeast Asia business. And that's when I saw these massive gaps between what are we learning in school today and in academia versus what do employers want to hire. And many of the courses that I took and that people are still taking in school today in 2021 are things like Porter's 5 Forces and the 4 P's of marketing and all of these things that no one is ever applying in the business world. So I was constantly in this gap in between these candidates who came out with these great schools and great certificates in education, but they were pretty much unemployable to certain extents. And the employers, on the other hand, were asking, do you have someone who can launch our market in Malaysia? Can they run an Instagram campaign? Can they launch our YouTube channel? So it's completely different kinds of skill sets that were required in the real world in businesses compared to these education areas. So that's what led me to start thinking about how can we have more people learning directly from real world experts and real world business leaders. And that's what led me to set up Tigerhall. So I launched Tigerhall in 2019, so coming to 2 years that we've been around now, founded in 2018. And I'll share a little bit about what we do so that you get some context to what I'll be sharing later. So Tigerhall is all about learning directly from industry leaders and aspirational role models. So what we do is that we have a network of about 650 senior business leaders and industry experts who are sharing their knowledge on the platform. So most of these are CXOs or department heads or lead Fortune 500 companies, and currently covering about 20 different countries and across many different industries. So they are the ones sharing the knowledge as opposed to in academia where it's professors and so on. And then everything that we do is relevant to the regions and markets that you operate in, so Asia in many times. And if you look at lifelong learning or online learning in education today, it's actually 83% that is developed, designed, and produced by a white American man above 45 years of age. So it's a very non-diverse view on learning. So that's why we focus a lot on the locally relevant nuances to Asia, to Singapore, India, and these markets as well. And in addition to that, making it very actionable. So what are the actions you can take? A lot of storytelling from their experiences, their careers, and which also makes a lot of motivating and aspirational. So it's an app, but which is entirely mobile first, where you dive into things like podcasts, power reads, live streams, and videos, which you can tap into on the go. And it's very much designed to fit into people's daily lives and designed to fit into their commutes and what they're doing on a daily basis. And then you also have live interactive experiences. So that's where people book their seats for group mentoring. They do private dinners. They can also book one-to-one mentoring. So that's all in the app as well. And then with this, we all curate it to different organizations. So that's an algorithm behind it. And then we curate in different trails based on if they're looking at leadership development or digital innovation, design thinking, data science, and a range of different topics. So these are some of the companies that we're working with today. So across a range of IT and technology and banking and financial services and so on. So that's a little bit of context about Tigerhall. So what I wanted to share, starting with, is what are the 3 top trends in corporate lifelong learning today, and how are some of these organizations that we're working with and many others that I'm speaking to, how are they approaching it? So what does that look like? So if we look at the first trend, I think it's nothing new to anyone that COVID has changed everything in the world around us, and everything is how we know life, and learning is no exception to that. And the biggest thing in 2020 was this moving away from everything face-to-face, right, to going virtual. But I think what is interesting on top of that is this expansion of the concept of digital. And what I mean by that is that before in learning, you had a lot of things very much focused on videos, and it was video learning, and that was equaling digital. Whereas what we're seeing now is you don't only watch videos, you also look at podcasts or live streams, or this entire concept of what does digital mean has really, really changed in learning. So that means that there's a lot of different kinds of formats available to people who want to learn. And the way that enterprises are approaching this is not just putting trainers on Zoom, which was kind of the first reaction that many had, but now they're looking much more into how can we utilize different formats of digital and not just like make people watch their screens a lot more than they already are. So that's why a format like podcast, for example, has been really growing in the past year, and was growing a lot before that as well, because it just allows people to tap into something digital and scalable, but not spending more time in front of their screens. So that's a very big thing going on. The second one is the focus on acquisition of meta skills. So learning has changed very much from being learning topics and learning about what are the skills that we need to know and what are the facts that we need to know. And that's where school still is a little bit like the academic side of things, and primary school and so on, that's still very much on learning things that you actually can Google. And the focus now has moved a lot away from learning just things for the facts and learning them as they are at face value, because those are the things that you can just find out anywhere anyways. So what the focus has moved to is a lot of mindset. So what we see corporations focus on are growth mindset, probably the biggest buzzword of 2020. And how do you develop a growth mindset? How do you develop the skills to innovate? How do you develop the skills to learn? So all of these meta skills, for example, the skill to learn is also a skill. So learning to learn is something that has gotten a lot more focus than learning skill A or skill B. So this whole concept of meta skills is really driving lifelong learning. And I think for the better, for sure, because if you learn things that, let's say you learn to code, right? That's going to change in the next year. That's not going to be the same. But if you learn how to find the codes and APIs that you're looking for to implement, if you learn that meta skill, that's going to be a lot more useful. And that's something that we see corporations are tapping into a lot as well, especially with this growth mindset. How do you build culture? That is a culture of curiosity is a very big thing as well. And then innovation, how do you build a culture of innovation? So that's the second thing. And the third is very much this actionable learning on demand in the flow of work. So if you think of before when it was people going into workshops. It was usually 2 or 3 day workshops that the executives would take time out for and go and learn something. That is something that people have completely moved away from and are now much more focused on how can we bring it to people where they are when they need it. So if you're sitting and writing an algorithm or writing a resume or anything, how can you get that learning on demand just where you are? So that's where a lot of learning has now been moved away from a separate space and moved into people's daily lives. Like, for example, chatbots or picking up keywords in the emails that you're writing to see what are the things that you would benefit from learning, and then sending those learning pieces in bite-sized formats to you where you are. So very much this in the flow of work is something that corporations focus on a lot, and having that on demand anytime, anywhere. But then they're also coupling that with the curation piece. So it's not only having anything available at any time, but also how can you curate this for different audiences? So they would group it into, for example, you have the senior leaders, you might have mid-level management, you have different teams, or people with just different needs, like people who develop communication skills or innovation or culture or leadership. And then how do you curate it for those audiences? So around lifelong learning is, for corporations, is about constantly balancing this between what are the actionable things that you can get here and now and quick and fast versus curating really dedicated focused learning for certain target groups. So they're constantly balancing this, like, do we go bite-size on demand here and now for like short attention spans, or do we go and really curate it? And many times they tend to do both, and having different tools and content for both of these. So that's what corporations are focusing on. And if we look at then what it means for individuals and this whole concept of lifelong learning and how that has changed for individuals, it's something that's interesting is that it's a big divide between outcome-oriented learning and intellectual growth learning when it comes to individuals. And this is quite interesting to see between different markets as well. So if you look at a market like India, for example, very, very outcome driven. Very much like, what do I get out of this? Do I get a certificate? Is it something that I can put on my LinkedIn profile? If it's something that would get me a job, would it get me a salary increase? So very much, what is the outcome of learning this? So that's one type of like behavior around lifelong learning, I would say. And then you have the other spectrum of that, which is more around, I don't care, I just want to learn. I just want to pick up any knowledge, any time, and learn more, and just out of curiosity to lead more towards intellectual growth. So you have these two very divided camps, I would say, and very different types of individuals. So if you think about yourself and your own lifelong learning and how you learn, if you think around, am I driven by intellectual growth and learning more just for the sake of learning? Is learning something that I just believe in and want to do? Or do I usually learn to drive towards an outcome? Am I learning to get a promotion? Am I learning to get a certificate, etc.? And that will then influence the way that you pick up knowledge, but also what kind of learning that you pick up and what kind of tools and so on are suitable for you. So it's quite interesting to see these two completely different camps that are in the world today. And then you have the rise of micro moment habits. So how people are being able to learn in the flow of life. So this is something that has risen, especially with the rise of social media and TikTok and how everything is bite-sized everywhere on demand, wherever you are, right? And this is where learning has started to sit in as well. So if you look at how like many people prefer to learn, it's more social media-like than, let's say, course-like. So picking things up, and that's why podcast again has been on such a growth trajectory, because it's so easy to use when you're on the bus or you're in the gym or out running or going to the grocery store and so on. So this rise of micro moment habits has really influenced learning and lifelong learning, but also learning tools across many parts of the world. And even things like, putting on like a 10-15 minutes when you're in the shower or doing your makeup or doing the dishes or hanging clothes, like all of these micro moments, to be able to fit learning into that is something that has really taken individual lifelong learning to a whole new level. And then lastly, this blended balance of scalability and isolation, as I call it. Because there is one thing that is beautiful with technology, right? And that's that it can scale to millions and billions of people. But the downside of technology and everything that we've been through, especially last year, is this tremendous isolation that it comes from. And the fact that we're not in the same room with everyone tonight, that we're here over Zoom. So how do you balance this in learning as well, right? And this is where, when the corporations are taking a blended approach as well, it's very much for this reason, and the same in individual lifelong learning. And it's very hard to learn in isolation if you're on your own and picking up knowledge and like pushing yourself through a course. That's very, very difficult for most people. So in terms of lifelong learning, it's important to keep that in mind as well, that don't isolate yourself and push yourself to do like online courses with 36 hours of video per day, but how can you then derive the benefits of that scalability that all of this technology comes with, at the same time as not isolating yourself. So taking all of these opportunities to learn face-to-face and in groups and being with people, in addition to all the benefits that technology has given us as well. So that's another thing that will come more and more in lifelong learning, but it's pretty much already here as well, in terms of just balancing all of this technology that is being thrown at us, but also the fact that we learn very well in groups. And when we're together, we can learn from each other and learn from conversation and go deeper and so on. So that's a careful balance to be stricken as well. And then lastly, I wanted to share my top 3 tips for implementing lifelong learning in your life and ensuring that you can pick up knowledge and continue to learn all of your life. First one being making use of all different formats available. I highly recommend to try out a range of different formats and see which one works for you. And then you might find that your format is books or conferences or videos or podcasts, but then you can also see that some formats work for different options. So for example, I might use videos on a Sunday afternoon when I'm sitting on my sofa, but then I might use podcasts when I'm doing the dishes because it's something that I can't use my hands, so I need to watch something else for. And the same when I'm exercising, using just something that you can listen to on the go. So making sure that you pull in these different formats and then wrapping it around a habit that you already have. Because many people are thinking that, okay, I need to set aside like 2 hours a week to learn Spanish, or like I want to dedicate time. And that's great if you can do that. Most people can't. So if you struggle to find that time to learn, try to wrap it around a habit that you already have. So like I've wrapped it around my doing the dishes, for example. And every time I do any household chore, I plug in either a video or a podcast or anything else. So plugging it around these habits that you already have in place, you don't have to come up with a new habit for it. And it can be things like walking the dog, or when you're waiting for the bus, or waiting for a friend who's late, instead of pulling up Facebook or Instagram, then pulling up something to learn instead. So wrapping it around these habits is something I highly recommend. And then something that I call 75-25. So being 75% intentional about this is what I want to learn, and this is for A and B purpose, so that you have a purpose to the learning and what is it that you're trying to learn and why, but then leaving that 25% for curiosity as well. So learning things that you had no idea about before and just throwing you out into things that you can completely discover and didn't have any prior knowledge of, and balancing those two, because it's quite easy to go too much on either side. Either you go too intentional and everything is productive and everything has a purpose and everything has an outcome, but then it also takes away this piece of just going and exploring and learning new things that you didn't have any clue about. Or it could also go on the other side and everything is just curiosity driven, which is also fine, but then you might lose that intentional why are you learning this as well. So a good balance between the two is something that I also practice and highly recommend as well. So on that note of curiosity, thank you very much for being curious about lifelong learning and hearing the short few tips that I had to share. And more than happy to answer any questions or hear any thoughts or comments from your side as well.
Thank you, Nellie Wartoft. It was very wonderful speech, and you have given us, all of us, to think about. And I like that we have to learn how to learn. You know, you are connected with the Rotary world. That was nice to know. So I think I'll now hand over to Bridget to coordinate the Q&A session. Bridget, please.
Yes, thank you, President Dinesh. Nellie, can I ask you just to stop sharing your slides? Then we have the broader. Yeah, now, yes, wonderful. Now we have a broader sort of people on the screen, or more sort of faces on the screen. I don't see any questions posted in the chat. Is there anyone with a burning question now? Yeah, Swami?
Been directed to me as well.
Yeah, Nellie, I've got a question. Suhaimi here. I was reading up on your website, and I noticed one of the comments that you made about how you feel traditional modes of education, pursuit of sort of degrees and certificates may be sort of a bit outdated. And I was wondering, obviously there are some pros and cons to the structured approach to learning, which many countries adopt, and the more sort of unstructured way of pursuing your interests. And I'm wondering, what is the right age for one to sort of say, you need to start thinking about, unstructured learning? Because, for especially for young kids, it's kind of difficult to tell them, just go ahead and learn what you want to learn, what interests you, because you kind of feel that there is a sort of foundation or basic amount of information and knowledge that they need to acquire in order to get along in this world. So what's your view about, when you should really transition them to saying, you don't have to go through what the school is really telling you, but pursue your interests?
I think it's very important to do both at the same time, which might not be a great answer, but I think that people have to, you have to have structure, in all areas of life, or at least professional learning areas of life, to be able to know how you're progressing and how you're getting ahead and so on. But I do think it's very, very important to have that unstructured part, let's say outside of school, because what happens to many kids who are not able to have that unstructured path, and then they come out in the working world, and especially if they work in more entrepreneurial areas or with startups, and they really struggle to oh, what do I do now? There's no structure. And the truth is it's very little structure in many areas of life, right? If you're in a large corporation, then you have a lot of structure around you, but otherwise not so much. So I think it's very important to have both of those elements at the same time. And if you don't have that curiosity or unstructuredness early on in life, I think it's very hard to get that later on. So for example, we were having a webinar with the Chief Learning Officer of Novartis, who's written a book about the advantage of curiosity and how we're all born extremely curious, but then school kills that. So I think as parents, for example, we need to be very clear that school is not killing the creativity and killing the curiosity by just telling people to study for good grades, because that's what we all have been told all our lives, right? Study hard, get good grades, get into a good school, and everything will be fine, and then just focus on those grades. But if we take that curiosity away, that will come back and hurt us in the end as well, and we will lose things like problem solving and creativity and dealing with when it's no structure, and also dealing with change. One of the biggest topics that I hear from every single business leader and HR leader that I interact with is, how do we have leaders who can deal with change and learn in change? And if you've always been in a structured environment your entire life, how do you then lead in change and deal with change? That's going to be very hard, because change is not structured, it's the opposite of structure. So I think we need both all our lives.
Thank you.
I think Sing-Hoon, you do have a question.
And Nellie, what is the revenue model that you have for the services that you provide?
We do a subscription basis. So it's per user per month. So we start at 100 employees and then up to 10,000 employees. So it's a subscription base.
Okay, I have a questions. When I saw, learning directly from Asia's most successful people, when you say Asia, do you also include China?
Yes, China is included in that Asia, but we don't operate in China. Actually, we're very India, Southeast Asia focused, and we're just launching in Australia and New Zealand this month as well. So more South and Southeast Asia. So.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question as well. I mean, coming back to what you said about dealing with change, how often do you encounter the problem of that people have to unlearn habits or unlearn things?
All the time. That's the first step, I think, is learning how to unlearn. And many times when we do our structured focused engagements, our first path or our first trail is just about curiosity and challenging status quo and questioning everything that you're doing and learning to unlearn, because that's one of the biggest problems, especially large corporations have today, is that they're so stuck in we've always done it this way. And then when things are changing rapidly and faster than ever before, it's very hard for those leaders to make those changes and keep up. So, so unlearning is as equally important to learning. So it's like learning to learn, but also learning to unlearn, I would say, is equally important.
Anything else?
Yeah, just one question. Nellie, I also saw that your platform sort of provides some analytics or team insights based on, I guess, what your team, sort of picks on in terms of the things that they want to learn. Can you elaborate more on how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little bit similar to what you mentioned earlier, like we have like education and certificates and so on. And that's what recruiters are going for to hire people. That's what we're trying to change by, instead of seeing where did this person go to university, they can see what type of growth mindset does this person have? How innovative is this person? How much of a leadership capabilities does this person have? And that's all analytics that we get through usage of Tigerhall. So, so we use an algorithm that picks up user behaviors and can tell the manager that this is a high potential person or someone with a lot of growth mindset, someone who's ambitious and so on. So that can then feed into, for example, succession planning and so on. So anything that people are doing in the app, it's captured by this analytics system. So the HR and senior leadership, they can then see and capture also in terms of the entire organization, what are the gaps and what are the needs and what are the challenges. So, and we also have some quite controversial content on the platform. For example, like what to do after you've slept with your boss, for example. That's a real issue that many people are facing. And that's learning content that we have. So you can see then that, oh, these other people have like consumed certain content, but of course not identifiable at an individual level, but seeing that this is certain issues that we have in the organization. Or if you see that 25% of our people are consuming content on stress management, you can know that then you have a problem around like stress management. You should probably direct more attention to helping people manage stress. So all of these are trends and subtle things that the analytics picks up, and then it makes recommendations to the corporation based on those data points about what they should do with their talent and learning strategy for their people.
Nellie, I have a question. My name is Nara. Just a question. As typically, if you take a mentorship, because I've seen the panel of people on your website very quickly browsing. A mentorship, at least from my experience, works on a sustained basis. You talk to a person, you pick a person, then you work with.
You're difficult to understand, Nara. You need to your microphone a bit, probably nearer.
Microphone, okay.
It was a bit muffled.
Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Sorry about it. So my question was, mentorship, at least from past experience, what I've seen when I put my people through is mentorship works when it's on a sustained basis over a period of time. When you want to change behavior in a person, or you want to address a certain thing, or you want to build somebody for succession. Does your platform allow for a sustained interaction with a person on the panel, or it's just for a particular question that they have, a particular situation, or the answer to a situation is the answer they get, or it also provides for a sustained mentorship?
It's both. It's both. So if you have like a quick question that you want to answer, like then you can just find that quick answer by the most suitable mentor. But we also do 3-month engagements, 6-month engagements, and 12-month engagements. Can do 24 months as well, but those are the 3 most common ones. And that's when you have a sustained engagement with a mentor, and that's usually meeting once a month or twice a month, depending on the level of interaction and so on. So that's the sustained programs that we do as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question. Nellie, did you see, what kind of changes did you see? Of course, we all talk about 2020 was a very exceptional year. I mean, you started your business, if I'm not mistaken, sort of 2.5 years ago. And what was it? Was it a totally different sort of requests or compared to when you started? So just a little bit of the experience. How did you manage this particular year?
Yeah, so I think for us internally was, we were already digitally native and everything was digital ready, and our solution was ready for that kind of digital space since everything is mobile based and so on. But I think what was interesting was that what the corporations cared about and what they were looking at tended to change quite drastically. And especially in Q1 and Q2 of last year was a lot of short-term solutions that people were looking at, like how do we drive employee engagement? How do we manage people's reactions to this pandemic? And like, how do we get people to be okay with this? And how do we ensure that people can work remotely, for example? So our #1 podcast on the entire platform in the first half of the year was what to do when your annoying remote colleague is ignoring you. That was literally the #1 podcast. So how do I get hold of all of these annoying colleagues, right? So the first half of the year was incredibly just short term here and now for all the understandable reasons. And then in the past 6 months, it's been a lot of this, how do we lead in change? Now this is how the world is going to be. How do we lead in a world like that? How do we manage disruption? How are we prepared for these? How do we drive a culture of innovation? So it's moved from a lot more long-term focus. And even though those topics were there before, they've gotten heightened to a completely different level. And especially the change and the growth mindset and these meta skills pieces have really gone through the roof.
Thank you. Thank you, Nellie. Perhaps you may stay a little longer. We will have our fellowship time very soon for a couple of minutes, and where we can ask and discuss with you some in a very informal environment. So now I will call upon Rotarian Suhaimi Zainul to give word of thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you very much to Nellie. I think the topic of lifelong learning obviously is one that resonates very well with me, and I think it's very, very relevant in these times. And I'm sure a lot to learn from what you've set up. I will certainly be exploring it a bit more, and I'm sure other members will be as well. Thank you very much. Everyone, please join me round of applause.
Thank you. Can you please unmute and give a round of applause?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Good job.
Thank you very much indeed, Nellie.
Thank you.
We have a bit of a chit chat and then sort of ease into the evening. Feel free to stay or just sort of have a little dinner or a drink or both.
Thank you.
A question for Nellie.
Oh, Carlo.
Yes, if you don't mind.
I think, Carlo, can you?
Yep, shoot.
Shoot. Nellie, this is Carlo here. What is the background of your name, Tigerhall?
It's a very good question. It's tiger is an Asian animal that symbolizes overcoming obstacles in life and achieving strength. And then hall is a place where you meet with people to connect. So Tigerhall is then a place where you can connect with people to overcome obstacles in life.
Thank you, Carlo. Thank you, Nellie. Next week, our speaker is our honorary member, Excellency Mr. Perisami Kumaran, High Commissioner of India to Singapore, and the topic, Singapore-India relations. So let's see, it will be an interesting talk next week, and please join again. And with that, I would like to thank everybody, all fellow Rotarians, guests, for being with us today, and enjoying our meeting. And we have lined up many good speakers in coming weeks, and we'll make the meeting more and more interesting. Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to close the meeting with the Rotary bell. And please stay on for a couple of minutes and let's have some fellowship. Thank you.